dos, tres.
He is doing it, and the best part is you'll see that he's a local, and you'll learn his story. So without further ado, please give a warm welcome to Mr. Russell Dorsey.
Good to meet you.
All right, take a seat, take a seat. All right, Mr. Dorsey, we are glad to have you here. It feels so weird calling you that.
Don't do that.
Okay, all right. All right, let's get started. So just walk us through your journey just from early sports interest, just where you started to how you kind of got into the career and decided to do the things that you're doing now.
Okay, so I'm from out here in the South Burbs, grew up in Park Forest, went to Ileana Christian High School when it was not too far away from here in Lansing, and played baseball my whole life till I got to college. And me getting into broadcast, I'm gonna do this too, I'm gonna look both ways. Me getting into broadcasting was a complete accident. So my freshman year in college, actually my first week in college, where y'all about to be very soon, I tore my Achilles tendon playing basketball. Like, if y'all seen Tyrese Halliburton, what he did, I did that. And I didn't go into college knowing exactly what I wanted to do. I was a marketing major, didn't really know what I was gonna do with it. And tearing my Achilles, it's like, okay, cool, can't play baseball. What am I gonna do for the rest of my life? And being from the Chicagoland area where we have every sport, loved sports growing up, a guy that lived on my floor named David Sauer, never forget, he heard me talking to some guys about something one day. He's like, yo, you should write for the student newspaper. And I said, that's a terrible idea. But he's like, no, man, I can't teach you what you have in your head about sports, but I can teach you how to write. Knowing that, okay, I'm gonna be in a cast for a couple of months and won't be able to go out and do anything really, like, might as well give it a try, and instantly fell in love with it. And then over the next, I guess, 10 years or so, worked at it, got different jobs, and kind of got to where I am today.
Okay, can you walk us through your day-to-day and how you prepare for live segments and on-air appearances?
Yeah, so it kind of changes. So if there's a day where I'm doing MLB Network stuff, the prep actually starts the night before, watching games, going through what happened, and then I'll get a research packet from our research department at MLB Network. Can kind of go through different stats, things like that. And then usually I'm working on a story for Yahoo, and maybe it's something that I'm writing about that ties into what's going on that day that I can kind of look at and go through. And I think the most important part for me is, how can I bring a viewer in so that they know exactly what I'm talking about and they understand, right? Like, the last thing I want to do is just regurgitate a whole bunch of stats and information and everybody's looking like, what are you talking about? So how do I bring it to a level where somebody who's really into baseball can understand it, but somebody who might not be into baseball at all also understands it? So that's usually what I do before a show. And then that red light comes on, 3, 2, 1, action, you're on air, and millions of people are watching you and hopefully understanding what you want to say. And it goes really fast, it's really quick, but it's also a lot of fun. And I think the thing for me, being on TV, it gives me that same adrenaline rush that I used to have when I play baseball. So it's one of those things where I don't feel like I miss out on anything because I get to do that every day.
Great. Talk to me about one of those times where it was like your big break, where you knew things were starting to go in the right direction and that you were doing something right.
Yeah, so I got a couple different ones. So first, when I was the Cubs beat reporter for the Chicago Sun-Times at 25 years old, which is really cool. And that felt like a really big deal for me because growing up here in Chicago and people seeing your name and face in the newspaper that you grew up reading, I think that's really cool. I think for me, having the understanding and the realization that people that looked like me would open up the newspaper and see my face, talking about baseball. And growing up, I didn't see that. And so I thought it was really cool that kids that grew up, back then that would have been 2020, would see me, somebody that looked like them. And I thought that was really cool and a really dope opportunity. And I think me being in an industry where there are not that many young people or African Americans, it was really important for me to understand the gravity of what that meant. So that was number one. Number two was being on MLB Network for the first time. So as somebody who grew up watching baseball, watching MLB Network, the first time I was on MLB Network on a show, it was like, wow, like I did it. Like all the things that I worked towards and worked for, those things happened. And I think what hits you is you think of all the parts of the journey, the different, things that you go through, times where you're saying, man, I don't know if this is going to work, but you keep going and you keep grinding. And I think that's one of those other moments where you're like, man, like I did something that I'm really proud of. Yeah. And I think it's really important on your journey to take time to be proud of yourself, because I think sometimes we don't often give ourselves that. When you go through a lot of things and you put yourself in a position to grind and grow and succeed, it's really important to stop sometimes and say, you know what, I'm proud of myself that I continue to go when a lot of people say, you know what, it's not working out the way I wanted it to, I'm going to stop.
On social media like X, so how has social media impacted your reach as an analyst?
It's huge. It's huge. And I know people have different opinions of social media, and it definitely has its cons. But for me to grow into what I've been able to grow into as a national writer and as a broadcaster, it's a way for me to connect with people, not only here in the States, but all over the world. It's a way for me to get, a clip that I did on TV tonight and throw it, on social, where it'll get 150,000 people to see it that didn't watch me that day, or sometimes a couple million people that, get to see something that I did, which is cool. And I think it's social media for me as a reporter is important because I can get information out very quickly to the masses, right? So when I'm breaking a story, breaking news, breaking a trade or a signing, it's really important that, because usually it's like this. So I don't know who loves basketball in here. Anybody raise their hand? All right. You guys probably know Shams Charania, who's breaking all the NBA trades and signings. So Shams is a really good friend of mine. And usually it goes like this. You're getting a phone call. You're talking to an executive, an agent, or a player. They're telling you about where they're going. Then you're here. You're confirming that report, what they tell you, to make sure it's 100% accurate, because accuracy is of the utmost importance. And then you're tweeting that out to everybody on X. You're putting that maybe on Instagram as well. But that's a way to get information out really fast to people. And then I think the other side, building a brand in sports media is as important as it's ever been before. And I think something I was fortunate with being much younger than all of my peers was that I saw it coming, because we got to grow up with social media, right? So I had I was a step ahead when other people might have known more people and had their advantages. My advantage was this, right? That I was able to build a brand really early at a time when it was really important for me to get my face and my name out there, so that when I did get my opportunity and got a platform, people were like, okay, I know who that is.
All right, man, I got to pivot. What'd you do with your first big check?
I didn't expect you to ask.
Oh, you didn't.
All right, I did something responsible. I didn't spend it. I put it in savings, put a little bit in a 401k, and tuck the rest. And that's not to be like, oh, I'm so adult. No, it wasn't that. But it's you want to be responsible because you realize that this business is fleeting sometimes. And so it can be here today and gone tomorrow. Yeah. So you want to be really aware and conscious of it's a blessing to be able to be rewarded for the things that you do. But you also want to be aware that all right, let me make sure I'm covered just in case the worst case scenario happens.
I know one follow up I had to that is you didn't come from like your peers. Some of your peers come from money where they're used to large amounts hitting your account at one time like that. Was there pressure when you first saw that? How did you handle that? What grounded you to make those type of decisions?
So I'm just from a normal middle class family. I didn't have we didn't grow up in a mansion or anything. I always like to tell people I'm from around the way. And I can say to you, like, I'm the same dude now that I was when we met when we were 13, 14 years old. Right. And so I think that's really important to keep yourself grounded, keeping people around you that are going to keep you grounded, right? Like, I met Dan in 2009, right? He was 13, I was 14. We were really young.
I have to say the year.
Yo, bro, 2009. But keeping people around you that keep you grounded, but that you can also grow with. I think that's really important. And a lot of you guys met each other at the same time that me and Dan did. And I think that is really important because the more successful that you become and the more that you grow, you're going to have a lot of people that you interact with. Everybody's not going to have your best interest in mind. Okay, so having somebody in my corner from the time I was 14 years old who knew my goals, my dreams, I knew his goals and his dreams. And then 16 years later, 17 years later,
Wow.
we can still, I can be up here with him and we can look back and talk about what that journey was like.
Right.
When we didn't have anything, when we didn't know anybody, when he didn't have Mark Time Creative, when I wasn't on TV. And we can say, man, you remember when we were talking about all the things that we wanted to do? And now I can come back to FASIA where I worked after I got out of college, you know, and Dr. McKenzie was like, hey man, know you're working on some things, know you want to follow your dreams, come work at FASIA and you can still do that, right? Like I work right down the street. And that also goes to, you know, I'm working with Ricardo, my man, 100 grand. And that's also somebody that I've known for a long time, but it goes back to having people that you're around all the time that you can grow with and have those same ideals, same ideologies, and then you can help each other as you grow.
Okay, who's one of your favorite athletes to interview and why?
One of my favorite athletes to interview, Mookie Betts, so shortstop for the Los Angeles Dodgers. Mookie is one of the best athletes, like pure athleticism, I've ever seen, and is also a very laid-back dude. And I think one of the things that I love about Mookie is in a sport that doesn't have a lot of African Americans, he was kind of put in this position where he had to be the representative, and it's something that he wasn't always comfortable with. And over time, and I've talked to him about this, like he had to become comfortable with it because he understood that as a superstar caliber player in a market like Los Angeles, where he was everywhere, he needed to be that person. And then I've also been able to see him grow off the field where, you know, he has his own media company now. And as a guy who was very shy, he's now everywhere and doing interviews himself. So he's one of my favorite people to talk to in baseball right now.
I just wanted to go back and just highlight how important what Russell said. Like, the people you're sitting by now, you never know where they're going to be in 10, 20, 30 years. And that's why in my class, right, I preach collaboration and collaboration with people you may not have went to school with, because we had the opportunity to go to school with each other. And that's how we built that relationship, right? So if you're sitting next to somebody, get close to them, right? Because you never know. I would have never thought. No offense. I hope. Okay. Like when I saw this guy freshman year, I never would have thought he's doing the things that he's doing, but he's doing them and he's excelling. So I just wanted to highlight how important that was. I didn't want to skip past that before we moved on. What barriers did you face earlier in your career that you think are specific to people like us?
It's a good question. I think one of the major barriers was me, because I think sometimes when you have a big dream, you can get scared out of it. And I think one of the things for me was you ask yourself, like, who am I to do these things? Who am I to want to be on TV? Who am I to want to be a beat reporter covering a Major League Baseball team? Who am I to be a national baseball writer? I don't see anybody that looks like me, that talks like me, that sounds like me doing that. And sometimes the weight of that can take you out of that dream. And so it was really important really early on for me to say, okay, this is going to be really hard, but anything worth having is. And once I got out of my own way, and just said, you know what? I'm going to try. I'm not going to try to be anybody else. I'm not going to try to do it like anybody else. If I'm going to fail, I'm going to fail as me. And I'm not going to fail because we don't do that around here. So that was one of the major things for me, was like getting out of my own way and being my biggest cheerleader. Like, I can do this. Wow. I can get this job. I can be on TV. I can be a beat reporter. I can be a national reporter. And when I started speaking positively about the things that I wanted to do, about my dreams and goals, I started to achieve them. Y'all have y'all paper in front of you. Write this down. Write down your goals. So 2018, I was actually still working at FACIA at the time. I wrote down my goals, and I didn't achieve any of them. Wrote down 5 goals. And it's one of those moments where you're like, man, I wrote down these dreams and these goals, and I didn't knock off one. Like, in the year, I didn't knock off one of the, I think it was 5 goals. Didn't knock off one. So I said, you know what? I'm going to put 5 more on there. And I'm going to hang that joint above my bed. So every morning, I'm going to see it. I'm going to wake up, visualize it. I'm going to say it. The next year, 2019, within the first 2 months of the year, knocked off all 10. And it's like, okay, now we're cooking. So saying what your dreams are, writing them down so you can see them over and over and over again, where if somebody asks you, what are your goals? You'll list them like that. So that's a major one for me, is, you know, getting out of your own way. And I think really quickly before we go to the next one, the other barrier is that people are going to tell you no a lot. And you can't let people's no's stop you from doing what you believe that you can do and that you can achieve and succeed at. When I first graduated from college and I wanted to write about sports, tons of people told me no. Actually, everybody told me no. And what did I do? I said, all right, cool. So after I graduated from college, 2017, I started working at my gym, and I used to write stories, checking people in, and then I would write these stories that nobody ever saw. But I told myself, when I got an opportunity, I wanted to be ready, right? People always see me at the gym. Hey man, what are you writing on the laptop? Oh, just working on a story. Like, oh, for who? For me. Because I knew I was gonna get a shot, and I wanted to be ready, because sometimes you only get one. And during that time, that's when Dr. McKenzie was like, hey man, come work at FACIA. I think you'd be a good fit here, working with our students. And I could have said, nah, man, I'm cool, man. I'm just work on my thing over here. But sometimes every path isn't linear, right? Sometimes to get where you want to go, you're going to have a lot of different trips, and it's going to zig and it's going to zag. But ultimately, I can look back and say, man, I'm glad I did that. Glad I said yes.
And you just hitting on so many things. I just want to go back where you said, like, goals aren't linear. Goals are not linear. They're, like he said, he started at his gym. I remember it. We worked out at the same gym, and you guys have to hold on to that, right? Like, as first generation students, you're automatically looked at, especially in today's society, as second class. Can I be honest? You're looked at as second. We were looked at as second class by a lot of people in his industry, a lot of people in my industry, and a lot of people in the industries you guys want to go to. And like Russ said, nothing worth having is going to be easy. Think about everything on your list that Russ told you to write down. None of it's going to come easy. None of it's going to land in your lap. I can attest that none of it landed in his lap. One thing Russ didn't tell you, and I appreciate him so much mentioning about friendship, because when you are with somebody for that long, you see them in their mountaintop and you see them at their valley. And what he's not telling you is this guy would work this job, and he would clock out and go down to the Tribune and write stories for free, and then he would work on his weekends too. So ask yourself, are you willing to do that? Are you willing to sacrifice that time and hanging out with your friends? There were times I would not see him. I mean, man, let's go out. So-and-so's here. Let's go to this concert. He'd be like, nah, man, I can't do it. But look at the result. And so I want you all to hold on to that. It's about to get, like Dr. McKenzie said, you guys are going to have to grow up twice as fast as we did. And you're going to have to take the reins of your own future, because the programs that people are used to having, the programs like this are under threat. because they know the power of it. And so you guys are going to have to be ready to sacrifice and to land, to say, I'm going to land this plane myself. I'm not going to fail. All right? All right, let's keep it.
Write down, what am I willing to sacrifice? And really be honest about that. Like, when we're done here and you go home and you look at that paper and ask yourself, what am I willing to sacrifice? Because it's not just time with your friends.
Yeah.
It is the mental toll of, man, can I do this? It's a lot of your time, right? All of your time, probably, right? Because Dan's right. I used to clock out at Facilla on Fridays, drive to the Chicago Tribune, work there on Friday and Saturday, have one day off on Sunday, come back to Facilla and work at Thornwood on Monday in a loop. But that's what I was willing to sacrifice. I was willing to sacrifice my quote unquote free time, my time with my friends, my time to do anything else, because I knew how valuable my dream was. And I wasn't going to let my dream go just because I'm trying to go to a concert with Dan, right? So what are you willing to sacrifice?
I know there's a lot of aspiring sports journalists in the audience today. So what's the one piece of advice you can give to young people interested in sports journalism?
There's a couple things. One, I'm really glad that there's a lot of people that want to pursue that. First thing I'll say is write. Like, write, have thoughts, and put those thoughts down on paper or on Google Doc or Microsoft Word or whatever, because you just need to develop thoughts and find your voice. It's a big thing for me. And you can always be on TV. That will come. But what you have to start with is the ability to write, because that has never left me. Actually, I love writing more than I like being on TV, right? It was why I was a reporter and a writer first. And once you're able to develop thoughts, then you'll say, okay, how do I take these thoughts and get them out to the masses in a way that they'll understand, right? That was always a big thing for me. I don't want to just talk to the diehard sports fan. So my brother is not the biggest sports fan in the world. Like, he's not me, but my dad is. My dad's like me. He's a diehard sports fan. So my thing early was, how do I reach both my dad and my brother when it comes to whatever I'm talking about? So I think that's a really important thing. I think the other thing, if you want to be a sports writer or sports journalist, read. Just read a ton of stuff. Like, read about what you want to write about. Read about what you want to talk on air about. Pick up a newspaper, pick up a magazine, read, publications online. Like, read, because that helps you with knowledge and information. That helps you understand what's going on in sports today. That helps you with your vocabulary. You're going to be writing, I've written thousands of stories at this point, and I've talked on air a ton. So I need to know as many words as possible, because I don't want to say the same thing every day. And if I'm on radio, I want to be able to know what to say if people can't see me. If I'm on TV, I want to be able to articulate correctly the things that I want to say. So reading is really important in that. Being a writer is huge in that. But to me, it's the most important thing. So those would be a couple of big ones that I would do if I wanted to be in the position I am right now.
Okay, when you're coming out of Ileana, were you always a writer, or as a sports journalist, can you learn writing, and then if you're not really fond of it?
No, I wasn't a writer and had no plans to be, but I always read, and so that helps. I always read the sports section of the newspaper with my dad. It's something that kind of connected us. And so knowing words really helped me once I decided that that's what I wanted to do for a living. But you don't have to, I didn't have to know I was going to be a writer to be a writer, right? I didn't have to know I was going to be a reporter to be a reporter. But I figured out early enough that that's what I wanted to do, so that I could go through the necessary steps and go through the process of gaining the knowledge, gaining the understanding, meeting the right people, so that I could be where I am.
Great. All right. I got one more question, and then we'll open it up to the audience. Walk me through the coolest either event or game that you've ever covered. Break it down for me, play by play.
Coolest game that I've ever covered was actually recent. Game 1 of the 2024 World Series. The Dodgers against the Yankees in Dodger Stadium. It was two of the best teams in baseball, obviously going at it. And Freddie Freeman, who's the first baseman for the Dodgers, had been hurt the entire playoffs, right? He had an ankle injury that required surgery, but he wasn't getting surgery. And he was limping the entire month of October, where to the point where they had to take him out of games after like the fifth inning because like the pain was too much. So I had been covering the Dodgers all month and had seen this happen. And in game one of the World Series, in a packed Dodger Stadium, in the ninth inning, Freddie Freeman comes to the plate and hits a 3-run walk-off home run. And it was one of the coolest things I've ever seen because all these things are playing in my mind. Like, this dude couldn't walk yesterday. And all of a sudden, he homers in the biggest moment of his career. And it's one of those things where if you boil it all down, like, I feel like I have the coolest job in the world because a sport that I played, a sport that I've loved since I was a kid, I get to see moments like that every day. The other moment for me was same ballpark, Dodger Stadium in LA 3 years ago. Albert Pujols hits his 700th home run, and I was on the broadcast for it for Apple. And I'm sitting in Vin Scully. I don't know if you guys know Vin Scully. He is one of the greatest broadcasters to ever live. And, you know, he had been doing play-by-play for the Dodgers since they were in Brooklyn in the 40s and 50s. And I'm seeing one of the greatest moments in the history of baseball live right in front of me, and I'm on the broadcast. This kid from Park Forest, Illinois, that went to Indiana Christian High School. And it's one of those moments that sticks with you, and you say, man, that was kind of cool.
All right, give Russell Dorsey a hand. All right, I want to open this up to you guys. Any questions from the audience?
How important do you think it is to learn a second language in your career field?
That's a good one.
It's really important. For me, I speak Spanish too. And in a sport like baseball, where you have guys from the Dominican Republic, guys from Puerto Rico, guys from Venezuela, guys from Colombia, it's often a barrier when it comes to talking to the media anyway, right? You have guys from around the way that don't want to talk to the media, let alone if you're going to a country where you don't know the language, you don't know anybody, you don't know what people are saying. And for me, I was fortunate enough to learn Spanish starting in 7th grade. And when I became a reporter, it seemed like, I don't know why people weren't doing it already. Now, you had some native speakers that did, but you don't have that many people who are reporters in baseball that can use Spanish. And so for me, it seemed like a way to interact with players that other people didn't have. Like when I started talking to you guys today, I was like, what advantage do I have that other people don't have that can help me be successful? And to Ricardo's point, like Spanish was a big one for me, where guys would be like, oh, that's that dude that asked me that question in Spanish. And it stuck with guys because it's like, oh, nobody ever does this. That's really cool. So very important, regardless of if you want to do what I do or elsewhere in the world's a really big place, right? Like it is vast, and there are people from different cultures and different backgrounds, and being able to speak a language outside of English, super important.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
So after your injury, what did you have to tell yourself mentally, and what did to bounce back from that?
It was difficult because I had played baseball my whole life. And at that point, you know, knowing sports, I understood what that injury meant as far as like playing career. And once I got the opportunity to do something that I enjoyed, it's like, okay, I'm gonna be all in on this. So once I found journalism, changed majors from marketing or business to journalism, it's like, all right, I'm full send on this. And I think one of the things that you tell yourself is, this can work, right? And it's one of those things where you have to tell yourself that, because you don't want to get in the mental space where you're like, oh man, tore my Achilles. I don't even like marketing like that. What am I gonna do for the rest of my life? Because you have those thoughts. I had that thought initially, like, I don't know what I'm gonna do now. And so finding journalism early allowed me to like have a light at the end of the tunnel. Got it, that's what I'm gonna do now. Yeah, I think it can be tough initially, but it goes back to the positivity thing. Like, I think it sounds cliche sometimes, like, oh, be positive, but so much of life is about, being in the right mental space to do your goals, your dreams, to operate, right? Like, you don't want to be in a negative space because that affects your entire mood and how everything else happens in your day.
Thank you. Anybody else? Oh, we'll go 1 and we'll go 2.
It's a good question. You don't think about it. But I remember the first time I was ever on TV, my heart was beating really fast. I was sweating. I knew what I wanted to say, but I was scared that it wouldn't come out the way I wanted to say it because I was so nervous. You have to take a deep breath. And when that director says, we're going live in 5, 4, 3, everything in your head goes out of the window. And you know that red light's on. I need to be able to say words right now. And then you rely on how you got there, right? Like, there's nobody that knows, in my mind, more than me about baseball. And so I have to be able to rely on that. You're there for a reason, right? Like, you're in that position for a reason. They don't put everybody on TV, regardless of what you might see sometimes. Like, they don't just put you up there. Like, they know that you have something to say. So it's being able to not make the moment so big, to take the deep breath, to breathe, and to say, all right, I'm going to kill this. Like, this is going to be great. Back to the positivity. And then you take a deep breath and you do your thing. So I wasn't never in Upward Bound, but I can say from working here, working at FASIA was a really important step for me getting where I am, because I got to be around students like you guys before I accomplished what I wanted to do. And I think that was really important because I had to practice what I preached. So I would talk to students every day at Thornwood about goals and dreams, even though I hadn't accomplished mine yet. And I thought that was really important part of my journey, because there would be days when I say, man, I'm telling these kids about their goals and dreams and I haven't accomplished mine yet. And it's like, do they even believe me? And so I think it's really cool to be able to come back and talk to more students. It's like, all right, this was the process. Even back when I was working across the street and I didn't know what the success looked like yet. So I think that's really important, because you're going to have moments where you have to believe your dream and believe your vision before it happens, right? Like, if I didn't believe that I could do all of these different things, it wouldn't have happened. And I have to believe it before somebody else does.
Great. We got one more in the back.
I was just thinking about this, but you remind me of one of our former counselors, Mr. Bob. But my question is, what is your biggest
accomplishment so far in my life? I hope I haven't accomplished it yet, but up to this point, being the first Black beat reporter for the Chicago Sun-Times is huge for me. At 25 years old, a kid from the Chicagoland area, that was really important and really cool. And then being I was told the first national Black baseball writer in the country at 27 was pretty cool too. And I think a lot of times I think about, I try not to, but it's human nature to think about like the gravity of what you do. And a big part of me getting in baseball, outside of loving it and playing it, was that I didn't see somebody like myself doing it at that level. And I said, well, why can't I? Why not? Why shouldn't Russell Dorsey be on TV talking about baseball? And so to be able to say, I've been able to do it at the local level, at the national level, being able to do it on TV, that's a really big deal to me. Not only that I was able to accomplish or begin accomplishing my dreams and goals that I have for myself, but the fact that other people, y'all, people around the country, people from the city that I'm from can say, oh, he looks like me too, and he's from around the way.
I have a statement leading into a question. So a lot of people don't know that while you have this career, right, influencer, sports broadcaster, you also started your own business, and that kind of flows into what you do. Can you kind of break that down and just talk about the benefits of starting your own business within your career path?
So my business is me.
Right.
So I'll try to explain it this way. So when you have a job, you are considered a W-2 employee. right? Where business pays you and they pay your insurance and all that. And so one of the things for me, once you start doing this job for a while, you can be a W-2 employee, but you can also get different tax benefits, etc., by incorporating, right? Starting an LLC, and I file as an S corporation. Just, it's tax lingo, like don't worry about it right now. But the basic version is these companies that I work for, so MLB Network, Yahoo, Apple, they pay my LLC and then I pay myself. And so the older you get and you're trying to figure out, okay, how do I make my dollars that I've earned work for me better, right? You find different things like that. And I think the cool part that I think y'all will appreciate, a lot of that I learned on TikTok and YouTube, right? Like it's not, you don't get some handbook of like, hey, this is how you save money on your taxes. This is how you start a business. This is how you start an S corporation. So yeah, that was a important part for me of like, okay, I can do what I do and do it differently.
Right. Talk to me about like the benefits, because why would I want to start a business and have these companies pay my business versus them just paying me as the person?
I'll say, number one, it ain't for everybody. Because some people would not like that pressure on yourself, because there's different times where you're a business owner or you are the business where every month not the same, right? And Dan knows, like, there's months where you up. There's months where you not up.
Down.
You down, right? And I think when you guys start learning about taxes and tax write-offs and things that you can, do to lower your tax bill at the end of the year. Things like paying my agent. As a W-2 employee, I can't write that off. As a business, I can write off what I pay my agency. So CAA, what I pay them on a yearly basis, I can write that off. My travel expenses, hotels, things I eat when I'm on the road, like all that can be written off. If I paid somebody to edit my videos for social, I can write that off. So like different things that you learn along the way that you guys don't have to worry about right now, but just start getting some of the language in your mind as you go so that you know kind of what's coming down the line.
Great. We got one more?
Great question. Networking is everything for me. Like me getting any of the jobs I've gotten started with me reaching out to somebody, knowing somebody, somebody putting a good word in for me because they met me a couple years ago at something where I introduced myself. Write this on your paper. Introduce yourself to everybody. Because to Dan's earlier point, you don't know who is who. You don't know who's going to become the boss somewhere. You don't know, when you're going to see this person again, where they might have an opportunity to hire you for something. Or just put in a good word like, hey, I met this kid back in the day. They're smart. They seem enthusiastic, have a good work ethic, and I want to give them a shot.
Yeah.
Like back when I was working here for SIA, I met the managing editor of the Chicago Tribune at a conference and just said, you know what, I'm going to introduce myself. Like, I don't know what this could come of this, but just to make the connection. And that guy hired me 6 months later to come work at the Chicago Tribune. In my career as a reporter, introducing myself to players and agents and executives of teams and general managers is super important because you're going to have to call these people to confirm these reports, to talk about these different stories, and you want people to know who you are. It helps now because somebody could say, oh, I've seen your face on TV. That's really cool. But it's also like, I don't want my face on TV being the reason that people know who I am. Like, I want to be able to make the call, right? Send the text message, send the email, do all the different things. If I see somebody at an event or at a ballpark or at a stadium, I'm going to go up, hey, nice to meet you, Russell Dorsey. Just wanted to say hello, introduce myself. Been doing that since I was 19, and it's just something that you can continue to do that takes nothing. Like it takes nothing to go up and shake somebody's hand and introduce yourself to somebody.
Great. Anybody else? Yep, we got one more.
I don't know. And that's okay though, because I think one of the things I tried to do a lot early is put myself in a box of, I need to do this by this age. I need to do this by this age. And what you realize is, back to our development isn't linear point, like everything doesn't happen on your timeline. Right? Sometimes it's going to take a little longer. if everything happened on my timeline, I'd be doing all the things on all the networks 10 years ago, but it doesn't work like that. And I think one of the benefits of that is you're going to learn different skills at different stops that help you get to that. But I will try to answer your question. I think in the next 5 years, I want to be the best reporter in baseball. And I think I have the skills to do it. I think I'm on the right track to do it. I think I'm in all the different mediums to do that: TV, print, writing. I'm on a streaming platform with Apple. Like I try to be able to, how can I saturate all of the different spaces with Russell Dorsey? I think that's what I guess my next goal is in 5 years. Like, I want people to say, who's the best reporter in baseball? And I want people to be able to say Russell Dorsey.
Amazing. Well, I think we're going to break here. Everybody give a round of applause for Russell. Thank you so much for coming, sir.
Absolutely.
All right, so I think we're going to dismiss and we're going to do lunch.